Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name's Anushka Shukla. I'm a youth leader with the World Women Foundation. I'm very honored to be here. I'm introducing our next session, which is Empowered to Drive Growth, Women's Leadership in Accelerating Energy, Climate Action. Our moderator is ALINA TRABATTONI. She's an international journalist. Please welcome Ms. TRABATTONI and our esteemed speakers.
As you wish. Okay, we have a space. Yeah, and we can closer. Perfect. So, welcome everyone. I'm ALINA TRABATTONI. I'm a journalist and I'm moderating this next very interesting session. But before we do that, I'd like to give a big round of applause to all the speakers that took part this morning because, well, amazing sessions, very interesting from a journalistic point of view, but also from the point of view of people sitting here in the audience that I've spoken to. So a round of applause. And you know, definitely there'll be a very hard act to follow, but follow we will, and follow we will very well with the speakers we have here today with me. I'm happy to welcome SILVANA KOCHMEHRIN, President and founder of Women Political Leaders. And please correct me if I get the pronunciation wrong, but ASHWINI BHIDE, is that correct? Yes. Fantastic. Chief Secretary to the Chief Minister of Maharashtra. Yes. Is that a pass? Thank you. Of the government of Maharashtra. And VAISHALI SINHA. Correct? Well done. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. I think I need a round of applause. Who is co-founder of Renew. And we're going to be discussing women's leadership in accelerating the energy and climate action plans. So I'm going to jump straight in, if I may, and I will ask SILVANA the first question, since we're going to also be looking at women's political leadership in climate and energy outcomes, which is a sphere, a sector you've been very active in. And SILVANA, which strategies have effectively shaped women's political representation and power in this sector? And what lessons can be drawn from what we've seen in the past, from other efforts that have actually fallen short?
Well, thank you very much for this question. Is the microphone out? Yeah, thank you very much for this question. And actually, we're now 2026 and we're still asking ourselves these questions, right? It's rather disheartening. And if you look at the Global Gender Gap Report that the World Economic Forum presents every year, and the 4 different areas that the WEF looks at, the one on political leadership is the one which has the least improvement. So why is that? What's going on? Well, the answer is pretty simple, and that also links to energy. Because it's about power. It's about massive power. It's about who decides what's going on in the world. And whenever you come inside this power sphere of politics to the different policy areas, you can very easily make the equation. If it's about money, and if it's about the biggest power portfolios, the less women you have there. So right now we've got 93% of the world's presidents, prime ministers being men, massive overrepresentation of men, of whose population. And finance ministers, it's equally. These numbers. It's quite equal, those numbers. There are very, very few women ministers of finance. There were more women ministers of defense, but ever since the global security agenda becomes the big one, the number of women in that space goes down. So what can we do? Just briefly answer your question. It's all about deliberate leadership. it is only this way that we can crack this. It's not even a glass ceiling, it's more like a concrete ceiling, that we can crack this one. That we need to have the decisions deliberately taken. There need to be women, and there need to be women in very strategic portfolios. And once you've had this, you can get to an effect like what we've seen in many of the Nordic countries or some of the European countries, which is the one-eyed among the blind to look at some Bible scenarios. Like, it's not doing well, but it's better than most other parts of the world, but it's definitely not good enough. But like, if you look at countries like Denmark or Norway or Sweden or Iceland, it becomes more normalized to have women leaders, and it's not every time an uphill struggle. So it's deliberate leadership decision to do this, to have quotas, to remove those non-legal barriers, which are inbuilt in an everyday work sphere that makes women still feel it's not a workspace for me. We can go more on this examples later if you want, but I just wanted to paint this wonderful picture at the beginning. So we really become combative. Thank you.
So we become, yes, exactly. We get very, very passionate about it. Ashwini, I'm going to jump straight in with you because you're very active in public policy. You're on the front line. And in the context of Maharashtra's, I'm never going to pronounce this, sorry, large-scale infrastructure and energy projects, how do women's leadership change over time? How has it changed? Who owns, who governs, and who benefits from energy assets, from infrastructure, from data as well?
Thank you so much. I would like to approach this question in two manners, two ways. First is how women leadership changes the whole approach to implement mega infrastructure projects, especially the projects which are there to reduce the carbon footprint, which are eco-friendly, which are energy efficient. And the second approach is what exactly government is trying to do policy intervention in terms of bringing women on board, especially in the process of energy transition. So just to talk about the first approach, I have been leading many infrastructure projects in Mumbai, which is the capital city of Maharashtra and the financial capital of India. And for past almost 16 years, I have been doing that. And recently, I have completed 2 mega infrastructure projects, that is the coastal road of Mumbai and the largest ever underground tube tunnel of India, which is there in Mumbai. And both these projects are basically to reduce the carbon footprint, to reduce the congestion on roads, and bring better connectivity for people in Mumbai. And I led this project from the front, and I also had a team of women leaders within my organization to implement this project. And I have seen that leadership provided by women is more inclusive, more sensitive, more empathetic, because to implement such projects in Mumbai, there are a lot of social and environmental interventions which we need to do. And both these issues, because many people get displaced, because in a busy city like Mumbai, when you do such mega interventions, then we have to move people from one place to another. We have to do a lot of disruptions in the city, because these are disruptive projects, but they create something new which will last for many decades for the city. But while making this disruption, still making the project acceptable to people, that's a big challenge. And women leadership can deal with this challenge in a much better way. That's what I've seen. Because when we did so much of social intervention, then a team of women leaders working under me, working with me, they were very sensitive to people. They brought them together, and it was easier to implement these projects in Mumbai, though it took a lot of time. But the women leadership and their approach did make a difference. The second point which I wanted to make was in the sphere of energy transition and the kind of changes which are happening in the country to deal with climate change and become more climate resilient. Government is trying to be inclusive and bring a lot of women in the fold. Maharashtra government is running one of the largest distributed agriculture green energy project in the world. On even a global scale, it is very huge, and that is directly benefiting to farmers. And there are about 20% women farmers in the state, and they are getting benefited by that, because that is assuring them power 24/7, and then that is benefiting to them directly. So the government is making a lot of policy interventions to bring women in the leadership position. But still we need to go a long way, because we need that their empowerment, their capacity building. And in terms of data, still we are not having the women-led data in a very scientific way. That gender sensitive data or data disintegration that is required to be done. And that is where I think going forward, even the women organization will have to take a lead and try to collect data so that our future policies could be more gender sensitive. Thank you.
That's an excellent snapshot of, of a very, very complicated, excellent. It's difficult to summarize it. But jumping from the public sector in India to the private sector, I wanted to ask you, Vaishali, from a private sector perspective, and of course, in the energy sector, women make up only 32% of all the labor force, and obviously renewables and energy transition falls within that sector. From a private sector perspective, what concrete shifts in corporate governance, in capital allocation, in ECG practices, what is needed in these spheres to make sure that women's leadership becomes a core driver of change and of adding business value and of contributing to clean energy outcomes?
Thank you for the... Hi, can you hear me? Yeah. Thank you for the question. And, I just want to say something, that women like this, when you have women like this in the workplace, do we need to talk about diversity? What do you think? Do we? It's still sad we're talking about women as a diversity, for the diversity agenda. It's really, we need women because, there's value creation when you have women. It's a more efficient option, be it the private sector or the public sector or any sector, or even the homes, I think. From A to Z, I think it's just basically there is a need to have the other part of the workforce, which creates a huge amount of value and can do things in the best possible way. And I think if we look at our goals, whether it's the 2030 goals, we really do need men, women, youth, and everybody else to do what they've got to do. As far as engaging more women is concerned, what I'm saying is what is nice to do, but the reality is we still have very few women who are in leadership roles, and we have to work really hard and drive hard. And it is a fact that when women get involved, as Ms. BHIDE, who's doing amazing work in Mumbai, a city which is getting transformed under her leadership, I think you don't need to ask then that, do we need women leading? She's just a fine professional and she's doing her bit better than anybody else. And that's why she's there. At Renew, there was a time when I was the only woman. We are a 15-year-old, a renewable energy company, one of the largest renewable energy companies in India. Right now, as we speak, and I can say, I guess at the cost of not sounding modest and humble, but I did drive the diversity agenda at Renew. And as we speak now, we have 40% diversity at the board. And it's a global board. We are listed on NASDAQ. And we have some of the best professionals who have come and joined our journey. And we believe that women driving the board has had a large impact. As far as ESG is concerned, when we have to report diversity-related data in our ESG disclosures, management takes note, our board takes note. There are rare and few boards like ours where we do it because we think it's the right thing to do. There are many companies where regulations need to drive an agenda. So ESG must come in, regulations should come in, investors must ask, and I think employees ask already. We have millennials coming in, working for us. So net, I think everybody believes that our diversity is a value creator, creates efficiencies, and it is because of that we need to have the other half of the population included and leading, not only included, but leading.
Hear, hear.
Can I just add something to that?
Absolutely.
In India, if you think about the green energy startups and clean energy startups, almost 40% of them are by women. So that's a big number. However, in terms of workforce, if you see, only 11% workforce is women. So I think that is the space where the ESG agenda needs to take lead, and we need to do that kind of capacity building, at least in this sphere, for women to come forward. Another thing, I think even Vaishali would agree with me, that for women entrepreneurs, getting finance is still a big challenge, and there they need to break that glass ceiling, whatever. But that kind of trust is still to be built, but I think we have begun very well, and the way the millennials would also come and they would be more demanding. So I think there is a huge scope for women to be there in this sphere. Yeah, thank you.
Very interesting. Silvana, jumping into the public sector again, into the state sector again. Well, first of all, Silvana is very well known for championing policy and heads of state rallying policymakers to push the just energy transition. So, you know, this is a sector you're very involved in. You know, turning symbolic commitments into concrete actions. That's very much part of your background and, you know, your story, as it were. So what better person to ask the question of how do we scale up these ambitions so that gains in females and women's political leadership translate into actual concrete climate actions, you know, just transition policies, real effective changes in the real world. How can we do this?
Well, I think countries like India play an absolutely crucial role in that transition. You have a very youthful society which doesn't have much patience with today's leadership, right? Talking from a European point of view, it's an aging society, but then if you look at Asia and I mean specifically India as being both an economic powerhouse as well as a country which has so much highly educated and ambitious youth. So the push for that transition, that this is happening, is one that needs to be global, of those that are remaining to be willing to go that path, who understand it's not an option, it's not a belief, it's a reality that we need that transition, and to acknowledge facts and build on that and bring in this way also women in. And we talked in the previous panel, I heard it was talking about women going into computing and STEM. Now the good news is that there are a lot of women interested in what's called headline sustainability. There are many women going into areas of education that are connected to sustainability. That might not necessarily be engineering, but that is including natural science, that's including some of the bigger humanity issues which are needed to understand both how to rally people behind it, because if a government just imposes those goals, it's a much more uphill struggle than if you find ways to bring the population along, or to even understand there is a demand in the population, and then political leadership is taking this demand seriously and moving forward. And let me just end by something that we always call the three famous lies that women encounter when they go into an area which might not necessarily be traditionally seen as a women's area, which is energy, which is political leadership, And so the first lie is like women biologically, they can't do this. They're, because of their hormonal cycles, because of their need to go to the bathroom more often. Nonsense, completely, and very, very few people.
Men are more likely to go to the
Exactly, men are constantly on a hormonal challenge. Sorry, no offense to the men in the room. It was a joke. It was a joke. It was a joke. No, but honestly, those kind of biological arguments also led to certain job bans for women, that in many countries for many years women couldn't, for example, be bus drivers or train drivers because of such. Now we today know it's nonsense. That's why it's called a lie. Right? The second one is that women lack the education. Again, data shows this is a lie, it's nonsense. Women do extremely well in education, university degrees, and of course there is not an equal representation across all policy, across all educational areas, but it also depends which geography you're in. In some parts, there's very many women going into engineering, for example. Now the third one, which we're currently more needing to go against, is saying that women just lack the ambition. They just don't really want to have such a tough job. They prefer something else in their lives. Who is in a position to take such a judgment on what women want? The millennials have a different outlook on life. In different parts of the world, you've got different outlooks on life, but it's a very subtle way of undermining women's acceptance into leadership roles. So every one of you who has the chance to make a difference and to also show that this is a lie that women once more are confronted with, it makes a difference. So please do that.
You know, if I could add on to
Absolutely.
one of the lies on education, we were doing some work, we're setting up solar panels, etc. And one of the conversations, when you put up solar panels, there's a huge amount of savings, and households can do a lot with it. And so one of the stories which is really interesting is that the man in the household, the father in the household, said that whatever I save, I will use to send my daughter to space. Right? So that is the sort of ambition which comes when parents encourage. So I think the other thing women tend to go through in life is even though they may top, which is, their academic, kind of exams in 10th and 12th grade in India, that's very significant. But people still believe that they're not ambitious. Where does that come from? So I just wanted to give you an anecdote from the ground there.
Very interesting anecdote and very important message. So take that with you if you take anything from this seminar, from this session. Next question for ASHWINI. But before I ask you the question, I want to stress that her offices have unveiled a very ambitious energy transition target, which includes, I think, 50% renewables by 2030, which is huge.
In terms of generation capacity, we are already there.
Wow.
We just need to, the usage we are hoping to have it to 50% by 2030. Yeah.
Wow, we can only dream of that here. Anyway, my question was on which regulatory, financial and procurement mechanisms do you envisage that can secure communities, that can ensure that communities build and maintain these systems and share in the long-term value creation? Because, of course, one of the big debates is ensuring that the benefits are spread out across the system.
In India, as far as procurement and contracting is concerned, there are obviously certain regulations. There are government financial rules where you have to do competitive bidding, and through competitive bidding only you can procure or contract. However, for the communities to get involved, and especially the self-help groups of women to get in the mainstream, there are certain provisions which give impetus to their involvement in the whole process. So there are many government programs like the Watershed Development Project, Maharashtra Rural Livelihood Project. There are certain, we have a women MAVIM, what we call Mahila Arthik Vikas Mandal, that is Women's Economic Development Council. And they run various programs which give impetus to women entrepreneurship, which give focus on creating their self-help groups, teach them financing, teach them business activities. So the SHGs typically, even the rural areas, the women form these SHGs, some 10 to 12 women or even up to 20, they come together, they form the group, and then whatever savings they do, the bank gives them finance basis that saving at a cheaper rate. So they can then do their own businesses, and government creates a mechanism by which they are trained in doing business. So they start from smaller activities, and many of these SHGs then get into credit, become credit societies. Some of them have become small banks as well. So this is how that transition happens. And then once they start doing their own businesses, for which government gives interest subvention and other facilities, if they settle, then they get some kind of reservation in the procurement by government entities. So government gives some kind of a special way for them to suppose a government office wants to procure some kind of a stationery which is made by these women, then there is some kind of a reserved quota for them. But government's more emphasis is on training them, making them aware of the technology, and especially the technology which is required for this energy transition. There, the government is doing taking lot of efforts to do their capacity building. Just to give an example, in rural areas, in very remote areas, women are basically roped in by a combination of government offices as well as some non-government organization who work as messengers for the green technology. So they are, and many private entities are also making use of them. So these women, they are called solar sakhis, solar sahelis, that is the solar friends. So it means even the private entities who want to propagate their green energy equipments, the solar kind of equipment, because the rural area is very scattered and reaching out to them, their marketing efforts are also not adequate. So what they do, they rope in the local women, they train them, and they work both ways. They basically promote these kinds of green energy equipment and spread awareness of them. They are their sale representatives. At the same time, they give the data back that where exactly these kinds of equipment are needed. So it works both ways. So many such attempts are being made both by government as well as non-governmental organization to bring women in this fold of sustainability or propagation of green technology, and it works both ways by building their capacity as well as collecting the data which is required for this kind of energy transition. Because even if at generation level you achieve the target, but the usage also has to be of green, and people themselves need, in their personal use also, they need to shift to green energy. And for that, this kind of community involvement is very much needed, and that's what government is trying to do.
That's a really interesting policy-driven community grassroots model, and it's incredible that it's so successful. And it's a shame you don't hear more about them around the world in other countries.
That's
so well done, India.
Maharashtra is having this kind of ambitious target of energy transition. India is anyway committed for zero carbon growth by 2070, but Maharashtra, which is one of the most important states of the country, it is leading by example. And that is where, in fact, the program which I mentioned, in Maharashtra, the farmers, they use groundwater to water their farms, and for which energy is required. So far they have been using almost 16 gigawatt of conventional energy, and these agricultural feeders are scattered all over the state. It's a very big state. But now government has taken this ambitious program of converting all these agri feeders on solar. So almost 16 gigawatt, and that capacity is already built. The private sector has joined hands, and by 2027, we are hoping to convert the entire farm energy which is required for farming in Maharashtra, that will get converted into green energy. That itself is going to be a big change in the state, and the farmers are going to get reliable energy, and state will also, it will also help the state to achieve this their target of energy transition. Thank you so much.
Well ahead of the energy curve. Well ahead of the energy curve. Silvana, what do you think? Are current leadership programs and mentorship initiatives enough, or do they need to be revised, overhauled, in order to drive gender-just transitions across the globe?
Well, I think
Thank you. Does that mean we've run out of time? Okay.
Thank you.
It was a bit of drama.
Yeah, but always good wake up for everybody. So I would say sponsorship is even more relevant than mentorship. Mentorship, of course, has its big values, but sponsorship, really taking somebody under your wings and sponsoring her way, is even more impactful, because it means you need to deliver on certain actions, and there are clear KPIs in a way, because you want to have that sponsoree of yours succeed, right? So I think sponsorship is really critical. I would also argue that in mentorship, reverse mentorship might be very helpful, that a male leader gets mentored by a young, promising, highly skilled female workforce, and to get much more insight into what is actually the reality for somebody with those characteristics. That there is a knowledge transfer in the other direction than what we traditionally see. Because very often the insights and the experiences that a male leader of today has had in his career path are not exactly applicable for the career path of a woman. And so for a male leader to really understand what are adjustments that he can make in his capacity as a leader, would mean a reverse mentorship could be very powerful. So sponsorship and reverse mentorship, I think that could be adjustments that we make.
They would really, really help, I think. They would absolutely really help. And if I may, I will ask you, if looking ahead at 2030 and 2050, so in the next decades, what milestones would define meaningful progress for women's leadership in the energy transition sector? And how can we hold also institutions accountable for these benchmarks?
Sure, no, that's a great question, and I just wanted to make one point. The
Absolutely,
other one,
let's take a step back.
One point on mentorship and sponsorship. Whenever we talk about mentorship, it's usually men mentoring, but women should mentor young men as well, because I think that's really important. It should start from home and then continue. So again, just taking an example, I have a son who's 23, a daughter who's 27, and in a family chat, whenever we share an article with my daughter on feminism or anything like that, and she's like, show it to the little one, he needs it more than I do. And I think that is really a fact that even at the workplace, we really do need to look at that. So coming on, what do we need? What should the world look like in 2030? Of 50 for women. I think one area which I feel really sad about when I see it is the amount of unpaid care work which gets done by women. I think the unpaid work being done by women unpaid work is at about $16 billion, which is about 10%, 9 to 10% of the global economy. And guess what? 4 out of 5 doing this, 4.5 out of 5, if that could be a thing, or let's say 9 out of 10, are women. right? I'd like to see this change. I'd like to see the unpaid work which women do, right? And ma'am, you spoke about the kind of work women do, in the farms. I just want to also step back and say, when people say, well, what is thou was, what does it bring, all of those sorts of things. It's these stories which we share here, and then we amplify, hopefully, to answer your question, more people learn about the kind of progressive work which is being done on the ground in India. I think we're not talking about it, we're doing it there. And I think it's this work which needs to be scaled up, and with the ambition of our Prime Minister and leaders and private sector players, I think it's all coming together really well in India on the ground. I hope we can have more of that in the rest of the world as well. And of course, things like ESG and SDGs will be drivers, and I hope they can pick up momentum, because I do believe a lot more needs to be done by everybody together. But I'm really proud to be a part of a country where a lot is being done on the ground. I'll close with one story, an example of salt pan workers. We're doing some work with salt pan workers in the state of Gujarat, where we are, the life of a salt pan worker is really sad. They only earn for a certain duration of time. It's got a very detrimental impact on their health, etc., etc. And it's a generational sort of occupation. What we've done is, in partnership with the international organizations like UN, UNEP, and some grassroots organizations, partnering with the state and leading as a private sector player, because I think private sector, in our budget in India, just to say, we've had about 10% allocation to women-related issues in our budget.
That's impressive.
I really do believe that private sector needs to do more. What we are doing, a small thing, is taking these salt pan workers, looking at their daughters and granddaughters, and if they are above 21 after school and college, reskilling them to become solar technicians or technicians. And let me tell you, the ambition they have is not to be technicians. They come to us and talk to us about entrepreneurship. And for me, that gives me hope that we will be in a better 2030 and a 50. In India, we talk about 2047 to become a developed economy. And all of these things put together, and these small steps will make for ambition and action.
Well, I have to say, I kind of feel as if you're galloping ahead and, like speeding ahead, the speed of light. So very, very impressive. Silvana, you had a...
Yeah, just wanted to add on what you just said, because when women always work, and they always work hard, the question is, do they get paid for it? Does this translate into recognized work with all the elements that are connected with this, and where it also builds up some security for when there comes a time where she can't work anymore, if it's for age or if it's for times for the weeks that need to be connected with pregnancy. And I just wanted to bring a positive example to this from a tiny country compared to India and compared to many other countries, but which is number one on the Global Gender Gap Report and any other gender statistics worldwide all the time, Iceland. And the reason why it is pretty simple, is that, and everybody on the political sphere, no matter if they're left or right or government or opposition parties, tell you it's the legislation on parental leave, because they put maternity leave and paternity leave on equal footing. And it's paid for, both for the mother as well as for the father. And it's not that if the father chooses to not take the 3 months, that the mother would get more. But this then made the huge societal impact of employers looking at men and women the same way. Not that women in childbearing age have a slight disadvantage. It also meant that men become very involved in the care work at home. Of course, in the immediate time once the kid is born, but this over time really translated into behavior changes and also different perspectives on parents. So that's, I think, a very, very ambitious model, which is probably quite far ahead for most other countries in the world, but it's a real one, it's an existing one, it's in a UN member country, Iceland, and so I always find it very important to take inspiration from successfully applied real life examples. So, but it's all starting at home, as you said, right? Now, it all starts at home, and even without such legislation, everybody can make a difference. Enlightened fathers who want to send their daughters to space, or mothers, parents together. So it's not that we need to wait until systems change. There's things that each and everyone can already do.
No, I think that's a great point. I just wanted to say that, it's actually since COVID, when there was a lot of work from home and what impact is it going to have on women, I've been advocating not only in my company, but generally that, women must step it up at work while men step up at home. So I think that is super important, not only because that's the better thing for women at work and otherwise as well, but also they role model. So when little children see their fathers more active, then there is more equity in the family as well.
And on that note, I'd like to thank our wonderful speakers for all their insight and, all the messages they've put across, very important messages, and invite you to a round of applause to thank them.